Hi, Gwen. I'm again, yeah, I'm really glad that you agreed to talk to me. I want to introduce Dr. Gwen Powell. She's a professor at Clemson University, and she was awarded so many titles and everything, but she is also a professional in camp professional, yeah, who happened to be a professor, as she said herself. So, Gwen, would you like to add something else about yourself? Um, and then,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. I'm really excited to be able to help share information and learn information. And I feel that what I do in the classroom as a professor is take the skills that I learned at summer camp and use them to create an intentional classroom and an intentional learning community so that students trust each other and can help challenge each other and bring out the best in each other. So I try to be innovative in my teaching, but I'll be honest, the most favorite thing I do is I get to spend my summers in Russia helping teach English to children in Russian children's camps. But we don't do English classes, we do recreation activities and use the activities to be able to help them, I say, move the English from your mind to your mouth so that you can get more comfortable speaking with them. And so I'm a professor of park recreation and tourism management at Clemson, but really I'm just a camp person. And so I look forward to talking with everyone.
Um, uh, uh, thanks a lot. If you start talking about Russia, so how did it happen that you came to Russia and it was not Moscow or St. Petersburg, yeah?
No, I spend my summers in the Mariel Republic in this town of Yashkar-Ola. And there's a program called Camp Counselors Russia that is run by Artec Tours in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a part of Camp Counselors USA. And while I was a camp professional, we hired many staff to be able to come be a cultural exchange participants at the camp in the United States. And so when I became a professor, I honestly missed being at camp. And so I called my good friend Valerie Costin and said, does CCUSA do any programs where American students can come and be counselors anywhere in the world? And he said, of course, come to Russia. Russia has more camps than any other country in the world. And I went, what? I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And so he selected the Mariel Republic because it has many camps and a strong local camp association. And so I could bring several students and have them in different camps in pairs and be able to connect. Right now, unfortunately, because of the world situations, I have not been able to take students the last several years because their parents are nervous about traveling so far, but I have still been coming and get a chance to be able to participate in all of the activities.
Mm-hmm. But you missed this summer, yeah?
Yes, unfortunately with COVID, I did lots of Zoom calls and lots of FaceTime calls because there are so many children who really want to practice their English. And I truly love having conversations with children and being able to help them build their confidence. I think most Russian people have all of this English in their mind, but they don't have the chance to practice using it. And so I think the children learn to trust me because my Russian language is so terrible. Я говорю по-русски очень плохо. So they hear me make mistakes and then they realize, hey, I can still understand her even though her Russian is not strong. And so then they become more confident to try to practice their English.
So you follow the same principle when you teach them in camp, when you do recreational activities. So what does it mean, recreational activities? Is it like games or outdoor games?
Yes, to both of those. We use, I bring like a Monopoly board set or Uno cards, or one of the favorites is definitely the children's Monopoly. And then I have lots of puzzles and lots of word tiles where we make activities. And then we also I've taught people how to play baseball, which is a sport that's popular in the United States, but most Russians have never played that. And so using outdoor games and indoor games to be able to generate lists of vocabulary words. And then one of the things I learned very quickly, when we play Monopoly, if I hear them speak Russian, they have to put some Monopoly money in the middle. And even though it's play money, they very quickly stop using their Russian.
It's a good trick. Yeah, we played Mafia in English.
Ah, yes. Yeah, that's a great game.
It's also so funny because they used to play it in Russian, and it's totally different for them. And it's also interesting because I thought before that kids, they start speaking, but they still think in Russian. I mean, they speak English, but they think Russian. And then they start thinking English when they start reading books, watching movies, like talking to native speakers. It's interesting that like you have different idea of like working.
I think part of it is because I'm not a professionally trained teacher of English, and that for example, if they ask me a serious grammar question, I don't know, because I learned how to speak English just by hearing it. And yes, I had some grammar in school, but they'll ask me, what's the past perfect something of this verb? And I'm like, I don't know. What is past perfect? I don't know.
Probably that's why children liked like learning English with you, because they also don't know the rules, and they see that it's possible to speak without knowing all the rules.
Exactly.
It's really cool. Have you noticed any difference between American camps and Russian camps?
There are many things that are the same and many things that are different. I think the collective mindset of a Russian camp, of everyone having a common base, is something that is different. And when you even talk about camps in the United States, there's every kind of camp in the United States you can imagine. So there's not just one idea of what is camp in the United States. And one of the things that I think is different about Russian camps is that many, many Russian camps have a similar schedule and have a similar plan for how they train staff. And so there's that idea of the collective that takes place. And one of the things I love most about the way Russian camps are organized is how many of the camps do training programs in March and April, staff training programs where they're training people from lots of different camps about the basics of youth development and behavior management. And it doesn't matter which camp they're going to go to, they're going to be better because they have that base. And then when they get to the specific camp where they're going to be working, then they can get the specific things about that camp. So there's such a proud history of the Russian camp tradition. And so I think that's something that camps can build on. The other thing that when I tell camp directors in the United States this, they just go, what? How is it possible? Many of the Russian camps have more free time than children in American summer camps have. And most camp directors in the United States are afraid to have free time because they're afraid that their children will get into mischief or trouble. And one of the things that I say about Russian camps is if we don't teach children how to use free time productively, they're never going to learn. And so I really value that Russian camps, part of the idea is let's give the children the chance to learn how to make good choices during their free time.
It's also, I know, because I was at camps like every summer when I was a kid for 2-3 sessions in a row. And for example, we were preparing a play or dance, something, and we used our free time and nap time for rehearsing. Also funny, like no one was watching us or making us do it, but it was our free time to rehearse, to prepare. So yeah, they just gave us interesting tasks or organized concerts, like evening talent show. And we were, and there were no gadgets. Like when I was a kid, there were no phones, nothing. In Russia, in America, overnight camps. It's not quite often. Yeah, you usually have a day camp, or do you have a lot of overnight?
We have both. We have a lot of overnight camps and we have a lot of day camps. Obviously, the day camps can handle more children. And so many, many children go to day camp as a form of childcare. And so they'll go most of the summer. And so many local recreation departments host day camps in their local park. And then there are some specialty day camps. And there are a lot of overnight camps, and they're every price range. There's some that are fully scholarshiped and some that are extremely expensive, like thousands of dollars per week. So it's every range. So I always tell people there's a camp for every child, but it's hard sometimes to find that specific camp and find the right price range for the families. And I think that's the biggest change I've seen in Russia. I've been going to Russia for the last 15 summers. And when I first went, most of the camps were full because the children had their ticket for camp from their parents' employer. And now as that support for camps has changed, it's harder and harder for the camps to market the value of the camp experience to the Russian parents. So in the United States, we don't have very much government support for camps. And so there are about 75% of camps in the United States are run by nonprofit organizations. And then the others are owned independently by families or companies.
Yeah, true. So you mentioned that there is camp for every kid. Special needs, we have kids with special needs in Russia. It's also for the last maybe 5 years, camps start to accept kids with special needs. And it's okay because schools do it, kindergartens do it, museums become inclusive. So have you ever worked with kids with special needs? Or do you train, have you ever trained staff to work with kids with special needs?
I have, and it's a growing segment of camps in the United States. So when I think of it, I think of there are some specialty camps where their whole focus is people with special needs or special medical conditions. Then there are some camps that I call mainstreaming. And that's the term we use in schools, is we're mainstreaming children. So they have a disability, but they're going to be doing activities with the other children who are there. And so those two different ways of thinking about camp make a difference. So our university has a camp property, and on that property, they host different sets. So they have one set of camp that is for children who have challenges with money, but they physically and developmentally don't have special needs. But on the same property, they have a camp that focuses on people who have either physical and or developmental emotional challenges. And so I think it's the idea of being able to help staff understand and the situation of the campers and then look at adapting. So I teach a introduction to camp counseling course, and each student spends one weekend helping at the camp for children with physical and emotional and intellectual disabilities, because I want them to see that camp can look many different ways. And so it's a matter of them understanding what does the person need in order to participate, and then how can we adapt the program to allow them to participate. And so if it's a medical specialty camp where everyone has that same condition, then in some ways it's easier to be able to adapt the program because it's a structural level. But I think for many camps, it's a challenge to look at how do we integrate and mainstream people so that then everyone benefits from the experience. When I think about the medical specialty, I have several friends who run camps that are specific for a population. And what they love is when they're at camp, everyone's like them. Everyone is checking their blood sugar. Everyone is looking at specific things about their health. And so they're not different. But they also like the opportunity to go to a camp to be mainstreamed in an inclusive way, because then they're helping other people see, hey, I'm just like you. I just happen to use a wheelchair when you don't use a wheelchair. And so it's a balance. And I think each family has to decide what's best for their child. And then sometimes it's what stage are they in understanding their disability. And then for the camp, deciding what can we safely and really doing a quality work, what can we support and what can we do? So when I was an active camp director, we worked with the Easter Seal Society to be able to look at, okay, given our property, given our program, what types of disabilities would it be very easy for us to integrate, and which ones do we need to learn more before we do it? And so we would have conversations with each family to decide, yes, we think we can do it if you'll help us brainstorm what we can do, or no, we don't think we are qualified to do it, but here's another camp for you to consider. So it became a partnership with that parent of let's find the right place for your child.
Yeah, when we start, I totally agree with you. I was going to also to ask, what is the most difficult when you, for example, you have a camp, or you're a camp director, or you're thinking to start a camp. What is the most difficult in terms of accepting kids with special needs? Is it staff members and preparing them, or is it location, or is it what? Your opinion?
That's a great question. I think that the biggest challenge is trying to figure out, can we give that person a quality experience? And if you have trained your staff well on how to adapt and how to integrate like the conversations that can occur between people, then I think you can do a wide range of situations. A lot of people think it's their property, but I think the physical barriers sometimes are not as big as the mental barriers of how am I going to be able to do this, and why should my group go at a slower pace because this person can't go as quickly. And if your staff are trained well, then it's not we're going slower because so-and-so can't do this. We're all going to enjoy the activity, and we're just going to do it at a different pace, not at a slower pace.
Yeah, and I think if they start asking these questions, camp directors or staff members, it means that they have a belief that it's possible. Because if they just find excuses like there is the location is not good, or what about parents of normally developing kids? What would they say? Or who will pay for assistant? Who will pay for blah blah blah? Or like special food? How do I get it? It's just excuses. Yeah, I think like first of all, it's belief that can I do everything possible to make this kid feel happy or like have good experience. When we start accepting kids with autism, it was also difficult, and there were a lot of issues. But yeah, we also at some point we realized that we can't grow because otherwise we can't control everything by ourselves. So we can't. Yeah, it's better to stay small, but to be in touch with family, to be in touch with parents all the time, and to be with the kid or next, like to be near. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, in Russia, it's different, I think, than in the States, because just the movement of accepting kids with special needs as people, you know, it's just started. You can say it's just started. A few years.
And I think the way that schools have mainstreamed has helped change some minds of people in the United States, because their children are already interacting with people with disabilities. We do an activity in our college classroom where the students are doing an accessibility audit, and we have them try to get from their car to our classroom using a wheelchair. And they realize how difficult it is, and so then they have more empathy and appreciation for the person who's using that wheelchair.
Yeah, I know this kind of trainings, yeah, for even like for staff members at camp to experience different conditions. Yeah, I think it depends on the station, but I think sometimes it helps. It helps to realize a lot of things.
And I think the words that we use matter. like some people call them disability simulations, and we call it inclusion fusion, where we're trying to help infuse the ideas of inclusion, and so that they get to experience the challenges that are faced, but at the same time, we're trying to look at how do we adapt to include them, not just look at what the disability is.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned these courses and trainings for your students. Do you have something online for staff members, for students, like who? No, have you like
I personally don't have that. We just do it with the face-to-face delivery of the classroom, but I could look and see if I can find, there may be some that are online that I'm just not aware of. And I think with COVID, there's so many things now that are going to be online.
Yeah, it will be
online. If I do class in the spring where it's online, then yes, I'll have one. But I hope I'm not doing class online in the spring.
Yeah, of course, face-to-face is much better. But I think right now a lot of people turn in their work into online, and even camps. Do you know that even camps? I was so surprised. Like we didn't do it because it's different. We don't like online.
Yeah, my students last year, when we switched from face-to-face to in March we switched to online, and we were supposed to run a day camp in April for our city. So instead, we recorded lots of activity content, and I gave those videos to the International Camping Fellowship friends, and they used those videos. And my students thought it was so cool to see their video with subtitles in Greek on the bottom or subtitles in Spanish at the bottom. And so that interconnection, there are probably organizations that already have online trainings. I'm just sorry I don't know them.
Yeah, so at some point it's really cool, and like right now kids, they used to watch everything online, but I think for people who like the atmosphere of the camp, it's just torture to do everything online. It's not a camp atmosphere, it's home. And like activities, lessons, like different talks and everything, you can do a lot of things online, even concerts. But it lacks atmosphere. Yeah, true. What is your research interest right now? Do you do something?
Most of my research is on the scholarship of teaching, and so I'm always curious, what are the best ways to teach something? So like you said, of course, face-to-face is better. We think that, but I don't know if we really know that or not. And so being able to look at what are the different techniques that we use in the university classroom that can be more effective, and what are the things in staff training that we can use. So the major project that I have worked on for a while now is when staff come to camp, they already have some skills and experience. So how do we bring that knowledge and experience out? So what do they need to know before they come to camp? What do they need to know during the staff training? And then some of the research shows that even if you have been trained in something, until you're actually doing it, it doesn't make sense. So for example, homesickness and behavior management, you can learn all the techniques and tools, but until you have a crying child or two children fighting with each other, you don't really know how to do those. And so being able to look at how do we capture that informal knowledge and how do we incorporate that into formal training is part of what I am interested in. Because when a university student comes into the class, if I have 15 to 20 students in a classroom, they each have different experience. And so if I only teach this one thing, then I'm boring some of the students. I'm too far advanced for the others. So I need to get them connected with each other so that we can share the individual expertise that we have. And I think for camp staff, it's the same, that we all have different skills that we're bringing to the camp setting.
And do you think it's necessary to have teaching training, like university degree or psychology degree to become a camp staff member?
I think those degrees give you a solid foundation upon which to build. But I think there's some people who have an equally good foundation that is different. My bachelor's degree was in psychology, and it helped me understand myself and others better. But I've had many staff who come from the business school or accounting departments or something like that, but they have a passion for people and being able to help communicate. So I think that having the teaching degree or psychology degree would be a good platform, but I think there are many paths to being a good staff member.
Yeah, I do agree. Gwen, thanks a lot for your conversation.
Sure.
I actually have like more question about your this teacher camp staff training courses that you do, and of course your experience as a camp director, and the resources that you can share. I will be also glad to put them on the website.
Sure.
Probably we will meet in Russia. Hopefully one day.
I hope so.
Back next summer.
I hope so.
In the States. Hopefully the borders will open. But yeah, we will. I will ask you for the resources and everything. We will stay in touch.
Sure.